Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Dominique, how are you?
I'm doing well as well. It's so fun to have you here. For those of you who don't know Mike Kauffman, Mike is a good friend. He's here in Guadalajara, same place as me here in Mexico. And Mike, can you tell us a little bit about your role, what you do, and then what you're going to talk about today?
Yeah, so currently I'm a tech integration coach at the American School here in Guadalajara. I'm also the robotics program director. And I've come from just recently teaching middle school technology, and then before that teaching middle school social studies and elementary school and high school social studies. And I'm going to mention that a little bit too as I get started. I'm going over today's tutorial on Lucid Press, which is a design tool to help students as well as teachers or whoever to create and design material. It's a pretty awesome tool in terms of getting stuff that looks good, so that we can empower students, with the ability to share their ideas in a way that's appealing, right? And not just, written words, but sprucing it up so that it looks good and makes people want to read it.
That's awesome. And Mike, I almost forgot before we get started, we just celebrated Children's Day in Mexico yesterday. So all week long, we've been sharing toys or fun little things we have around our house. Do you have anything to share with us today?
Oh, as a father of two young ones, my house is full of toys, and by far my favorite is Legos.
Yay.
One thing that is, a little bit of a struggle is my version at this age of playing with Legos is the building part. And then when we're done building and I want to like high five my son and be like, all right, we're done. But then we got to actually play with him. Right? So we got to like fly him around and make him talk, which, is
look what I brought today.
Look at that. Yes.
Isn't that awesome? Like, so same thing. My kids, specifically the older one, he loves Legos. And I love this little ice cream truck because, like, check this out. You can even, like, open it up. There's ice cream cones. Like, I don't think Legos were this cool when we were little.
Lego is the ultimate. As a toy, educationally, like Lego is, I am drinking the Lego Kool-Aid till the end. It's wonderful.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I love that you get to, do you use Legos with the robotics you're doing at the school?
For sure, yes. Our program, we're running from second grade all the way through high school. And for the younger kids, we use Lego WeDo as well as some Lego engineering kits. And then middle school, we're running with the EV3 Mindstorm, the Lego robot. We're looking into the new Spike Prime one, which just came out. So no, we are deep into Legos as well as pulling them into the classroom to do some robotics units in the science classroom. So it is for sure a regular tool in my teacher toolkit.
That is awesome. And Mike, I'm just going to say one more thing before we get started. In case we have anybody who prefers Spanish, Mike and I both understand Spanish. Así que si tenemos a alguien aquí con nosotros que prefiere hacer una pregunta en español en el chat, adelante. Mike y yo sí entendemos español, así que voy a estar al pendiente de las preguntas que haya.
Claro que sí.
Muy bien. Yeah, with that, Mike, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, I will put it up for everybody.
All right. Is that good?
Yep, and you're perfect.
Can I go into full screen? Yes?
Yes, yep. And then I'll just be popping in and out if you need anything. I am here at all times, but I'm going to pop out for a little bit, but I'm in the background.
All right. So again, we're checking out here Lucid Press, which is a design tool. There are a multitude of design tools that you can use with your students or you can use in your professional work. I'm a big fan of Canva as well, which I think, though, for me is more of a visual design tool. So if you're designing images or anything that's really just more image-based, I think Canva is your go-to. But if you need something that's more word-based, a flyer, if you're looking at a magazine layout, which is what we're going to focus on today, I think Lucid Press is your go-to tool. Down in the bottom corner, we do have a bit.ly that you can then have a copy of this presentation, which has some resources that you can walk away with, that you can get copies of and use freely with your students. The agenda is I'll introduce a little more of myself and talk a little and mention why I think that's important in terms of bringing you to the Lucid Press table. I'm going to go over some brief examples of student work just to get a sense of what's possible with the tool from, straight from the students. And then we'll take a tour of Lucid Press, going into the ins and outs of the tools. And then I'm going to spend the last chunk of time going over a design process and how to get your students creating using a process so that they're not just doing something one time, but they're learning the skills of how to create that they can then apply to other classes or in their own lives outside of school. So again, who am I? I mentioned that I taught a whole bunch of different things before I got into tech. And I like to mention that when I'm doing these types of trainings because, I don't have a tech background per se, right? I don't have a degree in technology. I don't have a professional experience with technology, but I learned it along the way as a classroom teacher. And in this case, I have no real natural design ability, right? I have one of those things where I see something in my eye and I'm so excited and I go to create it. And often there's this big disconnect there. And I say that because I do think with Lucid Press and going through the design process that I'm going to show you, I do believe that anyone can create something that looks good. That even without the strong technical background, even without a strong design background, that you can have you and your students create things that people want to look at, that people want to read and interact with. So without further ado, let's jump into it. I'm going to show just a little clip of a video just showing over some student work. In fairness, we had about 100 seventh graders create magazines, and obviously what I'm showing here is sort of cream of the crop. But again, this is real students' work going through this process and using this tool.
Mike, just one thing. We aren't getting any sound with this video. I don't know if there is sound with it.
Okay, well, I'll talk over it.
We can see the images, so if you just kind of want to explain.
Yeah, thanks, John, for jumping in. Yeah. So again, just examples of, student magazines here. I'm going over tons of covers. And, to me, really, a very high professional content. Again, these are seventh graders. They are not, design students. They are not artists. It runs the full gamut of students, right? But yet they're able to create, really high quality professional material. And again, the combination of the tool of Lucid Press, as well as the design process here. I'll stop it after this butterfly one because it's one of my favorites. You can see again, just the high quality content that the student created as a way to show off their learning in their classroom. Let it go a couple more images there. And we can stop it there. So again, just really seeing what students are able to do when you put a tool in their hand. And the feeling that it gets to, this was a research project, taking a look at ecological problems within Mexico. And then instead of just writing a paper on it and showing that paper to the teacher, which has a very limited audience, again, we gave them this ability to then take their words, take their research, take their ideas, publish it into a magazine, put it up proudly around the school, and again, feel good and expand their audience, which we know, right, that real audience helps motivate students to do, their best work and to bring out the best in them. So again, that's what these design tools can help you do, right? Take a traditional project, research, writing, and then add that visual component to it to give it a real audience. Now, I'm going to move into the next piece then, which is a tour of Lucid Press. Here, I will, though, leave you, if you, again, go to this bit.ly and have a copy of this presentation. These are the links to Lucid Press's Help Center. I will say that not all products have equal help centers. Some have much to be desired, but I do think Lucid Press's Help Center is really nice. I'll just take a quick tour of it right here. So this is the main one. And again, if you go into something, for example, you want to know how to find the icon finder. It walks you through the images. It walks you through really step by step how to do it. So as I go over these things, obviously you're not going to remember everything I say, and that's okay. But you can always go back here then and remember how to do something. All right. So again, that's in these links right here. So Lucid Press, it works as a standalone site, right? So for example, here is my Lucid Press dashboard, right? So it works as a standalone site, but what I also really like about it is it integrates into Google Drive and allows you then to house your work in Google Drive and then be able to have students share it easily through Classroom or whatever thing. And to do that, if you go into Drive and if you go into New, and you go down to More, and then you scroll all the way down, and there's this magical plus button there that says Connect More Apps. And from there, you're able then to connect additional apps into your Drive, right? So Lucid Press is just one of many. It's partner there, Lucid Chart. But you can see a variety of apps that you can then add on to your Drive to, again, open up and expand the possibilities of what you and your students can do. Of course, you can then just search Lucid Press. And then you can go in there and add it, follow the prompts, and sign up. One thing to note is that Lucid Press is a freemium application, meaning it gives you access to it for free. If you're an educator and you sign up with an educator email, or a student, you sign up with an education email, you do get additional access to it. It is, though, limited by certain things in terms of how many documents you can create, as well as some of the more advanced capabilities. Every feature that I'm going to show you, though, today, you have access to from the free account. And then if for some reason it doesn't pick up that you are an education member, if you then just search Lucid Press Education Upgrade, and every once in a while, for whatever reason, and I can throw this link in that slideshow as well to make it easier for you. For whatever reason, every once in a while, your education email might not get picked up as an education email, and you can always then request your upgrade. So it's something that you want to do, check in right away, as well as have your students check in right away. That way, if for some reason they didn't, they can access that upgrade and get additional capabilities. And you can find that in your account settings, right? It'll talk about then what kind of account that you have. All right. So let's then open up a new document. And I'm going to access that then through Drive. I'm going to go New. I'm going to go to More. And again, I'm going to then choose Lucid Press. And from here, you've got a couple options when you're creating something new. You can go from a template, or you can create a blank document. So right here, it's going to give you just some general options of different templates that you can use, calendars, magazines, all types of things, as well as you can come in here and use the filter to search for specific types, for example, infographics. And now all of a sudden a bunch of infographic templates come up, or magazines or whatever it is. Something I definitely recommend is, for you as an educator, use templates, right? It's going to save you time, right? There's no reason to sit there and try to create something from scratch, right? Our time is limited. Use templates. However, my sort of go-to rule then for students is start with a blank template. Start from zero, because we want to help them build design skills, even if you're not a design teacher, right? Even if you're a language arts teacher or a social studies teacher, we want to give our students the opportunity to create and to learn how to design. So, the go-to rule is students start off with that blank document. That way you have to build it from scratch. You can also search templates right up there. For example, resumes or whatever it is, and you can see what comes up. And then click on it when you're ready to then use it. This one, I'm going to start off with a blank one. Click New, and then it's going to open up my blank Lucid Press document. One thing to note is Lucid Press will set up in your Drive a Lucid Press folder, and by default, all of your documents will go there. Right. So for example, we're going to go Lucid Press PD. And then right in my drive, I've got my Lucid Press folder there. And by default, this is where they are going. You can see how I've got a couple of different things that I've created. Again, personal stuff here, engineering notebooks. Here's a learning progression. So for me, anything that's beyond a straightforward word processing document, I'm going to go into Lucid Press to create it, right? If it needs any somewhat of an advanced formatting there, right, where I want more control than what a Google Doc is going to give me, I'm using Lucid Press, and I'll open this one up just as an example of something that, again, I would use Lucid Press for. That's going to, again, give me a little more control than, for example, a Google Doc. Right, so this one is something we created, a learning progression we created for staff. And for example, I wanted my text to go vertical like that, and that's something that, you know, is really challenging to do in a Google Doc, right? I had to fit, you know, all this information on just one page, and I had a hard time doing that. And so I figured, hey, let's go right into Lucid Press where I have then more control. All right, so here we go. I've got my blank document here, and we're going to just do then a quick basic tour of our document settings. Now, unlike Google Doc, for example, where all your toolbars are up top, you know, we've got our left side and our right side where we're going to have the majority of our tools. Now, if I want to then do some basic document editing, here I have over here, I can see that it's my document that's being selected. I can go in there and mess around with my page size. So for example, if I'm creating a poster, something larger, where I can go in there and create something larger. If I'm going something smaller, like business cards, right, whatever it is here, I can then choose a different set of dimensions. And I also can do something custom, right? So if I want a very specific print size, for example, doing posters or something around my classroom, I can go in there and get that custom print size right there. You can change it units from inches to centimeters or pixels, whatever you feel more comfortable in. And then you can go in there and mess around with orientation, whether you want landscape or portrait. And then something that we are going to then play around with today is we do an example for a magazine, which is then going to spreads. Right, so if I come in over there, I'm going to add over on my left side a couple of new pages. You can see, right, the spread form is giving my pages next to each other. Now notice here, my page is what's selected. So over there, right, it says page. If I want to go back to editing my document, I'm going to click on the gray background. And again, I can go back to editing my document. So here I'm going to remove spreads, and now it's just going to be pages on top of each other, right, one page at a time. But if we're creating a magazine, we're creating something that's going to open up like that, we want to see the spreads because we want to see how the two pages look like next to each other. From here, you can mess around with background. You can go colors. Right? What I love here is if you just put your mouse over it, you can just see a variety of it, so you don't have to click. It allows you to sort of test things quickly. I'm going to leave it there at white. You can also, though, mess around with some linear stuff, right? And you can also then do an image in your background, although I'm going to recommend not doing that, and I'll talk about that in a little while. Here, I'm not going to get into it too much, but headers and footers, margins as well, something that traditionally margins are set pretty wide, but modern printers can take things pretty far to the edge, right? So I think even a ½ inch is probably a little bit too big. And that's just that blue line around here. So notice that I can lower it or raise it. And what's nice here is it just gives us a visual of where we want to take our text or where we want to take our things so we don't take it too far to the edge. Doesn't mean you can't go beyond it, but it's just there for you to keep in mind. All right, so that is our basic document settings, but now let's go into creating something, right? So we're gonna just do a magazine cover, and what I wanna do is I wanna add an image. That's now gonna be my left side toolbar, right? And I'm gonna go down here to images, and here I have images that I've already uploaded from the past. If I need to add an additional image, I'm gonna download it first to my computer. I'm gonna click manage, and then I'm going to click that upload button. And then from there, I can either do it by folder, right, or by individual images, select and open, and then it uploads it then to my library. Something that's a really good tip for students is have them find all their images first, right? Go in there, do that lesson on how to find images that are labeled Creative Commons or images that they're allowed to use. Have them go in there and cite, make sure they're finding images that have a large enough size that they're going to look good. Put them all in a folder and then upload them all at once into Lucid Press. What's nice about that workflow is, it allows students then to focus on the design and not have to worry about, okay, now I need a picture, let me design. Oh, now I need a picture, let me design. It allows them to really focus in on one thing at a time. All right, then to insert, I select it, and then I can always hold down my command key, right, and select multiple images if I want. For now, I'm going to just start with this one and click insert. And now here I can size it. Now, again, notice that if I were in a Google Doc, it wouldn't let me go off the edge of the pages right there, right? And images in Google Docs is like so frustrating, right? Because you move it here and then all of a sudden it jumps to the top of the page, or you move it too far down and all of a sudden it like drops down to page like 6 for whatever reason, right? Google has a mind of its own sometimes. But in this case, it gives you then free reign to move it however you want. Now, one thing, you notice that I can't make my image just wider, right? It's locked in this scale. But what I can do, I've got my image selected. I'm going to go over to layout. And this blue little lock key is what's keeping that ratio locked. Often this is helpful, right? So that way you don't make your images look squished. But if you want to have a little more control, I can just reselect that lock key. And then now I can then move it in any direction that I want. So for example, if I'm doing a cover, I'm telling my students, let's go off the edge of the page, right? There's no reason why, right, we want to have white borders around our cover. Right, we want to make, for example, our beautiful cover, that nice waterfall there. Now, I talked about not using images in the background because it's not going to give you this control. Right, with here, I can get this image exactly where I want it, maybe right about there. And then what I can do is in my layout, I can then lock it. So I'm going to click right there, and now it's locked. Notice I cannot move it. So in effect, now that image is in the background. Right, I can now put things over the top of it, but it's there, right, exactly where I want it, and it's not going to move. If I need to move it, I can just go back to layout, unlock it, do some adjustments, and then relock it when I know it's good. So now I've got my cover image here. I'm going to then stick over on the left side toolbar, and I'm going to add some text. By default, right, it's giving you headings, subheadings, and so forth, right? You can always change it after, but go in a heading there, and then let's drag this up. And then traditionally, right, I've got my basic features up top where I can go in there, mess around with my fonts, right? I've got some basic ones preloaded. I can always go to manage fonts and add a whole bunch more. So again, Lucid Press has got thousands of font options there for you, right? All different types of categories with it. And then if you find one that you like, I don't know, let's go with this one, sure. I just turn it on and click done. And then it's now going to be in my options here. There it is right there. Another thing that, as you notice, as I am scrolling over the different fonts, you can see then the fonts changing. Make that a little bigger so it's easier to see. All right, I read, there we go. So again, notice that as I go over the fonts, it is changing it, right, live. And I love this feature because you want to really get a sense of what fonts look good. And now we don't have to click on all of them one at a time. You can just sort of hover over and say, okay, that's a great headline one. Let's make that a little bit smaller. Now, some other options there with font, traditional ones, bold, italics, right, text color. And then here on this T box right here, you've got some text options. So this is where, again, this tool is giving you more design capability than a traditional word processing one like Google Docs. You can do some indents, right, strike through. You can do some subscripts, right, or superscripts, make them all caps, so forth. And then if you click on this more button, you've now got some additional features. So you can go to create a new style. That's going to be something you're going to use without it. You can do some outlines. So for example, you want your text to pop. Maybe let's go an outline color. You can always highlight it as well. And then now notice my text has got that little yellow ring around it because I set it up like that, and it is good to go. So now let's say I'm going in some subheadings here on my magazine. So maybe here's info in the magazine. Zoom in a little bit. And again, this red dot here, this red box means that my text says overflow my text box. I can click on it. It's going to make it wider. It's terrible spelling there. That's okay. Info in the magazine. Now, one thing that I love here. So I've gone in here. I've created this new subheading, but I like the features. I like the background and color that I've set up here. And I want to copy it over to this new text box so that I can do here with this magic paintbrush tool. So I'm going to select this text. I'm going to click my paintbrush, and then I'm going to click it over here. And notice then that it copied all the formatting from here and applied it to my new text box. And this works for any type of formatting. So again, a nice way to be able to spend your time on one text box or spending your time on one image or formatting one shape and then copying that formatting over throughout your document to save you time. So again, that's that magic paint format tool right there. All right, so again, subheading, sub-information, whatever it is. All right. So right now I can go down to my next pages here, where I can continue then doing some basic things here. Let's say this is again a magazine, so I'm going to go with some body text. And in this case, I'm just going to copy some information. Another workflow technique that I recommend is having your students do all the writing part first. Again, we want to give people the ability when they're designing to just focus on the design and not have to worry about creating ideas and design at the same time, because I think it's hard to balance both. So the recommendation, again, is students do all the writing, they do all that spell check, they do all that peer editing, revision work first. They find all those images, right? They make sure they're good sizes and they make sure they like them all. They get them all saved to a folder and then begin designing. And then they can go in there, copy the text, throw it into that text box. Zoom in here. All right. So some other things here, some other great features. Again, notice how just easy it is to drag it wherever I want, not confined by, what formatting. All right, that's failing, so we can just do that by hand. I'm not confined by any formatting here that you might be confined to with, again, a Google Doc or Microsoft Word or something like that. Now, because we're, again, using a magazine as an example, we want to go to some other design features. And I'm going to, again, select my text box. I'm going to go over here then to my right side, and I'm going to go to layout. And I've got some different options here. Right, I can do some rotating, I can do some moving, I can do some locking, arranging stuff. And we're going to go back to text. And then here's actually where we want to then mess around with some columns. So I'm going to go into 2 columns, and then notice there, I'll back it out. Got 1 column. There we go. There's my 2 columns now set up. So now it's looking more and more like a magazine. You can always mess around with spacing, bullets, tables of index. So these are traditional formatting tools that you see across just about any program or app. You get all the things here, right? Its orientation. Is it centered? Is it to the right? Is it to the top, the middle, and down? Again, your font. So again, all this stuff here is pretty basic, but if we come down a little bit, some features that are not basic here is warp. This is one of those things where you wish you had this tool in every app that you're using, but it must be technically hard to code because it's not in many apps. But it is in Lucid Press, right? So for example, I could choose a wave, right? I could choose, we can mess around with a ribbon, all right, or an arch, excuse me. And then you can always mess around with it, right? You can adjust how much you're going, whether you want it to go vertical, horizontal, the bend. So again, you can now take text and wrap it around a circle and just do things that, again, are going to make it look good. I'm going to turn that off. All right, so we got our columns here. We got our work. So we're going to use some features that are not everywhere. Another one is hyphenation, which is going to then make your text fill up the space a little bit better, right? So I'm going to turn that off so you can see the difference right here. You've got all the spaces in and around, and now you've got some hyphenation, which makes it more even looking, right? It's not to the extreme of justifying your text, but it's a little bit in that realm. So again, it helps it look better. You can always turn it off, but I think it looks good again for a magazine. All right, let's go over a couple more features here. Let's say we're going to go with some shapes, right? So I want maybe a circle right here. I'm going to throw an image right there in the middle, and I can add an image into that shape. Going to my images, scrolling down a little bit. Let's take this one, sure. I can drop it then inside that circle, and boom, it's cropped right into that circle. But notice now my text is behind it. We don't like that. So again, I'm going to go to my image. I'm going to go over to that right side. I'm going to go to layout, and I'm going to go to text wrapping. And then right there, again, you can see the text wrap around my image. As I move my image around, the text is there. Now, notice I went to then adjust my circle, and it got from a circle turned to an oval. Here's a great pro tip here. Anytime you want to adjust the size of a shape and you don't want to lose its balance there, if you hold down your shift key, right, it allows it then to always, right, be made larger or smaller with keeping its ratio. And that shift key works in any app that you're in. So there we go. We got our text wrapping there. Another thing that we want to teach our students to do and things we want to do as well is, sometimes it's hard to get something exactly where you want it. But if I go over here to my size and position, right, I can then move things incrementally, right? So I get more control than I would maybe with a mouse, depending on how good you are. But I highly recommend, again, over here with size and position, that you take advantage of these tools to really adjusting things exactly where you want them to go. That's true for rotating, right? However you want it. All right, so again, we've gone into some basics here in terms of some of the tools that stand out from it. Something else, again, that we like to think about here is then locking things. So for example, once my work is where I want it, but let's say I want to go there and add something else, but I don't want to ruin what I've already done, right? I can then go in there and, for example, choose to then lock, right, my things. Now, again, notice that was one of those freemium things where I can't do it by individual things, but I can, again, lock all of them at once. And then therefore, no matter what I do, that circle is not going to move, right? And again, I can do that with my columns as well. Select it, lock it, and now it's in place, right? So no accidental dragging things over when you're trying to add something else. Again, a great thing there to get into the habit of doing. And layout, and you can always just unlock it if you need to go back in to editing. All right, I'm just taking a look here. I think that is just about all of our tools that stick out. One other thing though, which is in our view. So in the background, we've got all these little lines here that are helping us line things up, all right? That's something that you can arrange in view, and it's our grid, right? So I can turn it off. But this is something that, again, we want to encourage our students to do. You can also set up here, right, additional insert guides. So in this case, and I'll turn it on and off so you can see it, right? It's inserted my guides. Now I've got the 3x3. So again, helping students make things balanced, helping students align things here. That's something that you want to teach your students, right? To help these tools to help you become better designers. And that goes back to my beginning where I mentioned that I don't have a natural knack for design. I don't have a background in design, but I can use these tools, right, to help me become better at it. Now, I want to back up for a second or switch gears for a second here and talk about a design process. So one thing that I think is important anytime we're teaching is that we're not just teaching skills in isolation, but we're teaching students the process and how to apply skills to creating. Scientific process, the research process, the writing process, right? and in this case, the design process. So here is a sample of how I would walk my students through it, starting off with their learning goals, really just hitting them with that every single day. We want to empower them to become effective communicators, laying out their steps, right? Here's this process part, finding inspiration. There is a thin line, right, from stealing other people's work, copying and pasting other people's work, and then using other people's ideas versus, right, getting inspiration from someone else and then creating something new with it. And I think instead of trying to, to not bring that out to the open, I think we bring it right to the doorsteps of our students and say, hey, we're actually going to take a look at magazine covers to find some examples of things that we like when we're creating our own, right? We want to go in there and find examples from professional artists and say, ooh, I like that. I'm going to take that style and make it my own, right? That way we're teaching students, right, how to do it responsibly. Same thing with color schemes, right? In here, again, just tons of requirements here. In this case, this is we did this project with 8th graders as well, so we added some advanced requirements. And I'll go into here. We're going to skip ahead here and talk a little bit about that process. All right, so remixing responsibly, right? What we have our students do is to go into Google search, right? Find covers of magazines that they like, right? And then add the image right to their slideshow. Go to Google image search, search out the layout from a magazine and add it right there. And the same thing with the index page, right? So again, here was my example, right? When I was modeling for students, here's a cover that I really liked. Here was the layout that I really liked. Here's a table of contents page that I really liked. But again, here are some examples of some really more advanced layouts that, again, are from professional designers. And then, if we then pop up, you can then see, and this is something I would show my students, right? Here was my inspiration right here. And then here's where I ended up creating, right? Different, but still helping me become a better designer. Here's my layout, right? I liked how this professional magazine took the image from one side of the page to the next. And then you can see in my work, right, I'm trying to mimic that. Zoom out a little, right, where I'm taking the image and going over to that second page, right? So we want to empower our students with that. We also want to feel comfortable ourselves because the vast majority of us as teachers are not design experts, yet we still want to have our students create things that look good. So let's send them to the internet. Let's bring in magazines to the classroom or whatever it is you're creating. If you're having your students do a video, go in and watch videos, have students find examples of videos and say, ooh, I like how they did this. I like how they did that. I'm going to try using that technique in my own work. And again, to make it clear that it's not plagiarizing, if you have them then share with you the example, you can then help them walk through that line of saying, yes, you took inspiration, or hey, I think you sort of just copied that. You got to try that again. The next piece is color schemes. We want to get away from going through those basic colors, right? Like those basic colors that we get access to from whatever tool, right? Like we could do better than that, right? There is infinite number of colors. Let's go beyond the 20 that we get choices for. And to do that, I love to send students to any of these color palette websites. There's a few that I use. I'm not going to say, I love one more than the other. I think they all more or less do the job. Take a second here to load up. And then what they have here is palettes of colors that go together, right? So if I then go here and click on my palettes, and then here you've got, again, people who have put colors together for you and your students, right? So for time's sake, if I'm going to choose this one, internet is slowing down, excuse me. Try opening that in a new tab. Oh, there, of course, there it goes. All right, so there's that color. And what we can do here is we can take this magic code right here, this hex code. I can copy it and I can go back in then to my program. I can go into my color, and I'm going to add a color, right? And to do that, I'm going to click that plus button, and I'm going to go into there where it says hex. I'm going to paste it right in there, and there's that purple, right? So again, being able to take this color and then recreate it, and this hex code works in just about any program. And again, it helps our students then put together colors that look better. And again, to help encourage them how to do this responsibly, have them share a couple options, right? Have them screenshot a couple different palettes, paste it right into their Google slide work, and that way you can, again, help them through it, right? You can also talk about different color schemes and what colors convey, warm colors versus cold colors, and then again, modeling it for them. And then the last part of the process is to then have them check their work. So what I do then is have students check their cover, right? Add an image of their cover, right here, and then go over and annotate it just as I did in the basic directions, right? So just like this, where I went over each feature, I'm going to have my students take an image of their work and then go over it and annotate each of the techniques, right? Each of the requirements that they did, we want to have them actually go over it, right? It's going to make your life easier as a teacher because they're checking their work, but more importantly, you're teaching them to be careful creators, right? You're teaching them good habits. And the last part of this process is then that more open reflection where I want them to take one image from their work, put it on there, and then reflect how it's an example of their learning. And then I want them to take another image to say, hey, here's something that next time I'm going to do differently. Again, working them through this process so that they're not just creating one assignment one time for one unit of work, but again, you're teaching them the process of creation so they can apply that to anything they do right in the future.
This was awesome, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, this is great. And I love that I can take your screen off.
Okay.
Also, I love that you were just talking about the fact that as teachers, we're so often required to be designers. That's not something that was in our undergrad or, our schooling. And so this is such a great tool to use. And the color lovers, I like the color palettes too, because I always use the Chrome extension Color Pick Eyedropper, to grab those hex codes. But I struggle with palettes. And so that's something that actually a friend who's not in education, she recommended that site to me. And I was like, oh, that makes everything look better.
For sure. No, I mean, it's exactly it. Like I'm not, and that's why I started off with my bio. Like I do not have a natural eye for this. When I try to create things without doing these techniques, I look at it, I'm like, that's ugly. Like what did I just do there? But again, when I'm looking for examples online, say, hey, what does a really good presentation look like? Let me look at that as an example. What does a good video look like? Let me, again, learn from professionals and then do my best to recreate it in my own way. And again, actively teaching students that skill so that they're conscious of it, that they're, again, learning from exemplars, but then we're also teaching them that fine line of, that was, there's a difference between getting inspiration and then just stealing someone's, work. And putting that out into the open, I think is very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love too how you look for inspiration in magazines, in newspapers or other spreads that you see. I remember in high school, we didn't have everything digitalized yet, but I was on our high school newspaper team. And so we had to do a lot of layout, but it was all manual, right? Like trying to figure out where things went. And it's funny how you never would have thought as an adult you use those skills or you need that. And so I love that we're teaching our students those design skills as well. We had one question for you, Mike. And I think I responded correctly, but I wanted to ask you to make sure. Maria del Rosario says, es gratis porque me salieron sugerencias de planes. ¿Cuál quieres instalar? Like, which one should she be getting? Because there's like a premium and there's a free version. Right?
So yeah, there is, and then there is an education version, which is kind of in the middle, right? So if you have an education email, it should automatically come up as that educator version, which again is more advanced than the free, but not as good as the paid. But if for some reason it doesn't come up right away, which we found actually with our for whatever our email at our school that happened. Again, going to the Lucid Press, if they just search Lucid Press Education Upgrade, it will bring them to the site. And I'll throw that link into that slideshow so people have access to it as well. And then they can get that education upgrade. Still limited, I think, in terms of how much you can create, but still, better than the free version. It gives access, to teachers and students.
Awesome. And I'm going to throw that link up one more time. For anybody who did not get Mike's presentation, he shared that link with us. And I was looking through the resource. It's great, Mike. So thank you for putting all of that together and laying it out. Before we let you go, though, I'm going to invite Fede with us here. I don't know if you guys have met before.
No, I don't think we have.
No, we haven't yet. I actually really liked your presentation. I thought it was really nice. And it reminded me of assignments I did with my students a couple of years ago. Usually we were working a lot of fake news stories, and then how can we use graphic design to make it look convincing. And I think it's a really good exercise, in knowing how to tell a story, So I really liked it. I was actually looking for one of the previous assignments, but I only found an image a student did. She wrote this, and we did something very similar to yours, we using layouts from magazines, and then she told this story on how she knew Audrey Hepburn, and she had some stories about her. And she did this really nice montage. I actually just found it here, a Photoshop montage of her with Audrey Hepburn. And it's really funny because the only picture she found that she could actually manipulate to make it seem like she was with Audrey Hepburn, it's one where Audrey Hepburn's with her baby. So she ended up doing something kind of wait, where is it? Like this here. And then along with that image, there was the whole story behind it. She was telling something she grew up with Audrey Hepburn, and she worked with the layout, and it looked really nice, and ended up being a really nice assignment, and they enjoyed it a lot. So I think that was really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, and Fede, it's funny because with the team for Nivela, you've been pulled into a lot of different design work, right?
Yeah, and similar to you guys, it's been mostly okay, how is somebody doing this? I think we can do something similar, and playing around with it, and trying to figure it out and making sure that it looks nice. But it's not really my expertise too. But as you say, I do find it that it's something that as teachers, it's good. I learned that lesson also teaching my students, that if I made it look nice, they would enjoy it more, right? And also, let's say it's sort of in a way we're kind of instructional designers in every single term of the way thinking about it. I don't know. Yeah.
No, and the tools are becoming so intuitive, right? The tools are becoming easier to use, whether it's video tools, graphic design tools, that it really is students from as young as they can get their hands on a keyboard, they should be going in there and thinking about, how do you convey information through design so that people can digest it? Because we're visual creatures, right?
Yeah. Speaking of visual, Fede, what's going on with your shirt today?
Well, I'm going to be talking about YouTube, so I wore my YouTube shirt today just to be in the mood.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for being with us this morning, and enjoy the rest of your day off today. It's a holiday today in Mexico. So enjoy that and have a great weekend. We hope to see you around here again.
Thank you for having me down. Nice meeting you, Fede.
Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Bye, Mike. Bye. A ver, Fede, platícanos, ¿qué filtro estás usando? ¿Cómo hiciste eso?
No, cuando vamos a entrar aquí al streaming, hay una opción para poner un green screen. Pero esta mañana le contaba yo a Lula que no tengo pantalla verde, entonces tenía una camiseta y dije, pues uso la camiseta. Es más, la camiseta dice ahí Google for Education.
Ok, qué chistoso.
Sí, entonces eso fue lo que hice hoy ahí. Dije, voy a ponérmela y me pongo ahí a jugar. Es que casualmente en la mañana estaba leyendo que algunos profesores usan verde en las videoconferencias con los estudiantes, y que a veces los estudiantes los están grabando y después hacen montajes con la ropa de los profesores.
Pues claro,
ahí,
son súper
sí,
listos los alumnos.
sí, y entre los ejemplos salía, creo que fue la reina en Inglaterra, hace un tiempo estaba de verde y entonces le hicieron unos montajes, entonces por eso dije, pues voy a ponerme una camiseta.
No, pues genial, ya también para enseñarles a los maestros.
Sí, sí.
Muy bien, pues Fede, ahorita voy a poner un video y ya
Dale,
después puedes platicar todo de YouTube.
dale, listo, Dominique.